Time now to take a look through the international newspapers with Elena Casas. Hello, Elena. Now, it's May Day, and of course it's not a celebration just being marked here in France, but across the world, including in the US.
Yes, which isn't really a place you'd associate with the union movement, and certainly not a place where the 1st of May is actually a public holiday. It's not. They have Labour Day in September, of course. But the Occupy movement, which died a death rather at the end of last year, of course, is trying to use this to get themselves back on the news agenda. They've joined forces with traditional labour unions and with some immigrants' rights groups who managed to get thousands of mostly Hispanic immigrants to stay at home for one day on the 1st of May 2006 to try and show the rest of America what life would be like without their cooks and cleaners and carers and so on. And they're trying to hold what they call a general strike, although how many people will actually stay off work in the US today, it's probably likely to be negligible. But they hope, at least according to what they've told the Huffington Post, to get as many as 10,000 people out onto the streets of New York to join a march for workers' rights today, and for the aims of the Occupy movement, of course, to help reduce income inequality more than anything is what they focused on last year. But really, they're unlikely to have a very big demonstration today in New York. So Noam Chomsky, the famous American left-wing thinker, has written a piece for The Guardian about where the Occupy movement should aim to go next. If it can't get very many people to protest in the middle of the US, what should its focus be on? How best to reduce income inequality? Well, he does say they did achieve a lot actually last year in making those themes in the centre of the presidential election, things that hadn't really been talked about as much before. They've got their language of the 1% and the 99% onto headlines and into the minds of journalists and politicians, something they didn't have before. But he reckons if they're going to build on that in any way, it's going to have to be in a small scale sense, things like community organisations protesting about small local issues that really get people involved, as opposed to try and get them to kind of stir up anger against Wall Street.
Now, you're also looking at what the papers are saying about the Sudanese border crisis.
Yes, The Independent sent a very interesting report from a refugee camp in South Sudan, where they say what's now a refugee crisis could turn into a major humanitarian disaster. Apparently there's 120,000 displaced people in South Sudan, and also a possible malaria crisis after that disease has turned up in big numbers in the refugee camps. Lots of those people don't have shelter. There's rains coming soon to South Sudan, so this has got to be sorted out very quickly, they say. Of course, the fear is that it could turn over into civil war, with both sides massing troops on the border. They also look at an interesting report that comes originally from the Ugandan government, who say that Omar al-Bashir, the president in Khartoum, is relying on Joseph Kony, who, of course, the former Ugandan warlord. Now, we don't entirely know where he is. We think he's not in Uganda. The New York Times is having a look at the struggle to find where he is after, of course, he became a big international cause célèbre and shot to the top of the US political agenda when a viral video calling on the US government to find him became a huge hit a few weeks ago. So the US has got about 100 troops, they say, armed with the latest technology, trying to dig out this in a kind of unequally pitted combat, as the New York Times puts it, trying to dig out this group of slightly ragtag rebels led by a man who claims he can hear voices, Kony, but they're not finding it all that difficult to get hold of him, despite the small numbers of people that he still has with him. Less than 300, mostly children, soldiers he has with him, they reckon. But just because of where he is such trackless, pathless jungle, they don't even know if he's in Sudan or in the Central African Republic, so it's quite a good place to disappear, as they put it.
Now, we're moving on to Angela Merkel. She's the German Chancellor, threatening to cause a major diplomatic incident over football.
Yes, this is over Euro 2012, where she now said, according to Der Spiegel, that she's going to boycott the tournament in Ukraine in a protest against the treatment of opposition leader Yulia Tymoshenko. Now, she's been on hunger strike since April the 13th, saying that she's been mistreated in jail. She has been jailed, of course, allegedly for treason over a gas rights deal that she signed with Russia when she was Prime Minister. Now, of course, she's fallen foul of current President Viktor Yanukovych. Now, Der Spiegel says this could represent a complete change in Angela Merkel's diplomatic policy, because having started her record back in 2005 when she came to office with a big focus on human rights, she's turned away from it, they say. Last year she refused to meet Chinese dissidents because of concerns about Germany's trade with China. So they're hoping in Der Spiegel that this Ukraine stance is a change for Angela Merkel, who hopefully will put human rights central more in the future, they say.
All right, thank you very much for that, Elena.